I want to tell you how this entire journey began. Also, because tomorrow I might not get this opportunity to share my story with you. I was practicing with a college, our schedule gets full. And this is also because it correlates with the SSLC and the PU board exams. And as much as it's challenging for the students, so also parents go through a lot of roller coaster rides with their children, wanting them to pass with flying colors. So what happens is, all of us, my colleagues and myself, we kind of become groups and we decide, okay, let us, in case my calendar gets full, I'm going to send the others to you. Pretty much by, like how it generally happens with most businesses. And one afternoon, a mother came to me with her daughter, and she said her daughter needs help. And when I understood deeper into what the child was going through, the mother said that her child is a performer, first rank student, and always been a winner. And now she's refusing to give her board exams. And it was very surprising because it's not about motivating a child and to focus on grades and things like that. Here was a child who didn't want to give exams because she was uncertain if she would come second. And the mother was requesting me to, cajole the child to come and give exams. And the parents, luckily for the child, they were very forward thinking. They said, we're okay with whatever grade she gets. As long as she's doing something that's meaningful, we would be happy. So I told her, okay, and I said, I'll revert back with a schedule and a plan for the child. And the same day, I got another inquiry call, and this was from a person living in Singapore. And he wanted me to counsel his mother, who was refusing to undergo a bypass surgery. So he just wanted me to convince her and, work around the fear that she has. And it was crucial that she goes through the surgery. What he offered me was, I can fly you to Singapore, and if you can spend 10 days with my mother, it would be great. And like most people at that time, I was like, okay, this is a case that I must take because, I have somebody who's going to fly me to Singapore and make me go through this entire experience. And I was excited. And what I did was, the previous case of this child, I wanted to pass it on to my colleague so that, the child can be taken care of. It just needs a little bit of support and work around a little bit of an anxiety and coax the child to study. And because the child is already a performer, I didn't see any issue with it. So I planned my travel. I went to Singapore. I spoke to the mother, and I understood that, she was refusing to go to surgery because she felt if something happens to her, then her son and daughter-in-law may get divorced. So they were going through a lot of turmoil in their marriage, and the old woman was just trying to hold the entire family together. So I worked through, and the marriage is still holding good. I came back to India. I was very satisfied. It gave me a huge experience, and I felt very good. Somebody got you out there, and I really enjoyed the entire experience over there. And when I came back, I resumed office, and when I went, I got to know from my colleagues that the child whom I had passed on to a colleague happened to miss 2 appointments. My colleague was busy and she rescheduled the appointments, and I heard that the child committed suicide. So, the first few days I kind of brushed it aside, saying I cannot take responsibility for actions and things like that. But the truth is, it hit me hard, and it made me question the kind of choice that I made. Had I known that, it's like that saying, whether you fall into 13 feet water or 8 feet water, you are going to sink. And it hit me hard in reality when I had this entire wake-up call. I do not know why, but after that, when I was going through newspaper about suicide, or when somebody brings it up, I could never look at it in a very casual sense. It was not just that I felt bad for this mother. She met me for the next 2 years. She would come every Wednesday, and she would just miss her daughter sitting with me. And one of those days of my life that, what would you tell a mother who's lost a child? We don't even have a name for parents who go through this kind of pain. If you're a spouse who's lost your better half, then you call them a widower or a widow. If it's a child, then you call them an orphan. What do you call a parent who's lost a child? Probably we don't have a name because, the pain is such. And that day I just decided that no other mental health professional should go through what I'm going through. It's very funny because, you have your cousins who are making great career and, whom you are compared with just because you have made a choice of taking a subject that's not yet flourished. And in India, mental health, stands in its own place. I wouldn't say broken, but it's very scattered. It's not as organized as it's in the West. People like me who have done our graduation, how long can we do something like a pro bono? I think our entire profession, we need a lot of help. And that's where I began to ask different set of questions, where can we patch it up? So do we conduct 2-day workshops and train people? So how do we go about it? Do we know that we only have 9,000 psychiatrists for a population of 139 crores? And that is the gap. And sadly, when you look into the other side of the spectrum, people who finish their graduation in psychology, they don't find jobs. They do not know where they fit in this entire career spectrum. So how do we bridge this gap? And let's not forget that, to prepare a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a therapist or a counselor, all these different mental health professionals, it takes minimum 5 years. So are we going to make the entire population wait until we have 5 years and then we have a set of professionals who are under tremendous pressure because, their schedule really gets full? So if I'm an ordinary person, how would I prioritize appointments? So I know that any mental health journey takes a couple of sessions. And I would decide by saying that, okay, fine, whoever is paying for all the 12 sessions, then I'll prioritize them first. And I don't think so that that's the ideal approach that we should have. So that took me into the next step, and the mission was not just organize mental health itself, but also to make it affordable. So today in India, you cannot have an appointment that is below 750 rupees. That's the minimum you start with, and it goes up to 5,000 to 10,000 rupees. How many people in India can afford such? And most of the therapies are in English. It's a privilege for the urban people who are internet savvy to actually reach out and get this kind of support. What about the rest? What about the child who's sitting in the hostel, not knowing how to make friends and who's feeling left out? What about the person who's traveling in the train? What about somebody who is on a work break, working somewhere else away from family? I think mental health is a birthright. We all deserve to live great lives. Our minds are the only place that we live in. And that brought me to the second aspect. What if we create a front line of emotional first aid providers? What if you have people who can give information to public? Starting from clearing the stigma around mental health. It's okay to speak about what you're going through. It's okay to focus on working around your mental hygiene. Right? 300 years ago, when Florence Nightingale spoke about the need for having nurses in hospitals, it took more than 50 years for her to convince the system, because they were questioning her, when we have a full-fledged physician, who needs somebody who's half-baked? And it makes sense. But today, we cannot imagine a hospital without nurses. And that's exactly what is the need of the hour when it comes to mental health. We need a front line of emotional first aid providers who help people to have conversations that matter to them. And that is where it brings me to the statistics. Today, if you look at statistics, 1 in 14 people are suffering with diagnosable mental illnesses. And this is according to CDC statistics. So you have a lot of startups that are focusing. There are a lot of helplines that's coming up in India. Today, mental health is the number 3 focus of the government. So there is a huge opportunity because people are finally realizing that relationships, mental peace, all these things matter. because life is short. So we are going to look into having the focus not on that one person who is diagnosed with a mental illness, and that ratio itself is huge, and we need more hands working and focusing on that, dedicating on that. But what I'm trying to focus on is the remaining 13, because if they are not going to be taken care of, then they are very soon going to be on the other side of the statistics. And that is how I came with the whole idea of Habify Healthcare Technologies in the year 2019. I worked hard to understand, if you look at most of the material in psychology, it's written by Western authors. There's only about 16% which is actually, by Indian writers. So the first idea was to create a curriculum that can introduce common people from different backgrounds of arts, commerce, law, anything, to understand psychology as a subject that not just focuses on what's wrong with the mind, but also what is strong about the mind. And we need to focus on that. We need to focus on building character, because without that, you cannot speak about happiness, you cannot speak about success, you cannot speak about giving back something to the society. So a healthy society is a society where the character of people belonging to it is strong, and that's what we are looking at creating in Habify Healthcare Technologies. So we have an academy where we train people, we put them through 122 hours, and this entire course curriculum is certified and accredited with State University of New York. So once they finish the course, they go through a rigorous examination, and then they get an opportunity to work on our platform where they work with other like-minded people, and they have this opportunity of connecting with those who are looking at having somebody to speak to. And in this aspect, we are looking at our target audience of pregnant women, because they go through a lot and they experience loneliness at some degree during their entire journey. We are also targeting and focusing on doing something with senior citizens, because I think it's a generation, if they don't transfer the knowledge, their life experience, then the next generation like ours would be at a total loss. And it's important that they have people to be speaking about and around. We're also looking at working with accident patients, people who are tied up to hospitals because of a tragedy in their life. We're looking at working with LGBTQ community, because it's a community that has gone through so much of misunderstanding, and we want to offer our support and create a world that is more inclusive. And of course, the students who are the ones who are going to shape this better world tomorrow. So these are all the people that we need to reach out and bring psychology to their dining tables and bring it as a part of their common life. And this is the need of the hour. So on one end, we have an academy that creates professionals. And then on the other side, we have an opportunity for people to connect with these individuals at a very, very affordable price. And this is something that I'm very confident that I can achieve. But where I really need your help is, I don't want to stop until we have this course translated in all the 22 languages of India. And we don't want to stop until we have our services of the platform available in all the languages. And this requires huge marketing support. This requires campaigns. This requires influencers in the society speaking about mental health. It requires funds that can make and translate this idea from a concept into actual reality. And this is where in my entire journey, I have this opportunity of connecting with you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for listening.